this is going to sound counterintuitive. Another way you can stand out is the minimize strategy. If everyone else does A, B, C, and D, maybe the fact you only do A and B and you do less of what everyone does as normal makes you stand out.
This is Personal Brand Blueprint with me, your host, Dave Polikoff, where I sit down with proven experts who've built successful personal brands to break down how they did it, so you know the exact blueprint on how to build a personal brand that attracts attention, builds trust, and converts your dream clients online. We get super specific. I'm talking real-time feedback on what social channels to be on, what marketing strategies to implement, and what content is capturing and converting the most attention on social. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome back to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. Today's going to be a fun conversation. I have a multi-time author and public speaker, keynote speaker and workshop facilitator at StanPhelpsSpeaks.com. So Stan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave.
So what I really want to get into is one of the most apparent things is, I have a lot of guests on Personal Brand Blueprint, a lot of speakers, authors, etc. And I see a lot of different recording setups. And I think yours is top 5 for sure. And there's a reason to that, right? And you kind of have a fun story about this, because you are a speaker, but I think kind of something evolved due to the pandemic. So can you kind of walk us through your journey in public speaking and then kind of what maybe led to this home studio?
Yeah, great question. So all the way back in 2012, the first book in the series, which was called Purple Goldfish, came out. And that was in early 2012, I started to get asked to speak. I went to Sweden, I went up to Canada, I spoke around the US, and I thought, hey, I really enjoy writing, I enjoy speaking, hey, maybe I can make a business out of this. And so that summer, I packed my family up from Connecticut, and we moved to North Carolina, and I started my business. And so I spoke, full time for about 6.5 years, and I'll never forget it. I was just in Vegas last week, and I went to In-N-Out Burger, and I thought to myself, I remember being here March 11th of 2020. And literally, as I walked off my keynote, my phone had blown up. And as we all remember, the world had pretty much shut down. And I was red-eyeing that night to do an event in Indianapolis. And then on Friday, I was meant to be in Columbus. I had 5 engagements in that week. By the time the third one was done, my calendar was empty. And so as many people who made their living speaking or workshops, it was how do we pivot really quickly? Do you remember webinars?
Yeah, way back in the day. Now they've evolved from webinars to workshops to it's a whole nother thing now.
I jokingly say that I believe the old form of webinars with like simply sharing your slides is the cure for insomnia. If you want to put people to sleep, that is by far guaranteed the way that you can do it. It was a learning process, and ultimately I wanted to be able to replicate as much as I could what it would be like if you were in the room with me. And I think I had showed you a few of the setups. I have one right here where it's kind of pulling back the fourth wall. I have one that mimics as much as I can, if you can see it, me actually being on a stage with my slides behind me. And this one makes me look the best because it's the best camera for things like Q&A or introductions, or anytime I'm speaking where you don't need to see a slide. is ideal. So it kind of morphed. Um, I could show you the behind the scenes, but it's three different cameras. I have a switching device, but the I love now doing because I have two teenage boys and I like sleeping in my own bed. Um, I don't mind skipping the airport, and also because I'm seeing people right in front of me, I, Brady Bunch style. It's much more interactive than if I'm actually in the room. So I get a lot out of it. I think done the right way, it can be super engaging.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, as a big studio setup nerd, as people can probably tell, this is what I love to do. And just being in the content, video content space myself, how important it is to really have something at home where you feel as you can record professional video, whether it's webinars or maybe just video for your own personal brand,
Right.
just investing into that equipment setup just makes you feel more professional, just kind of in you're in kind of that professional suit, if you will. How important do you think it is for personal brands to invest into a home video setup and recording area?
I think if you are creating uh, video, that it is super key. I do a lot of training on presentation skills and communication. And what I tell people is before the first words come out of your mouth, people are making judgments about you. And so what you're wearing that kind of tells your story or reinforces your brand is absolutely critical. So I tell people this. This is just right out of one of my workshops I did last week. Start strong, right? So you're going to start with that background that reinforces who you are. Dress to be comfortable when you do video or when you present, and dress to your brand. That's
Yeah. Well, I always wear a black t-shirt, so that kind of speaks to itself, right? I like to be relaxed and casual is my brand. So give us a little insight into like if we were to attend one of your kind of virtual events and such, what are some of the key topics that we'll be learning?
Yeah, so I started out, I have a whole series of books now that spans 11 different colors or metals or even it all started around my work. I come from a marketing background, so it was about client and customer experience. So a lot of the
Yeah.
workshops I do would be like a journey mapping workshop, rethinking kind of your customer service and customer experience. Um, and that was my first kind of foray. I learned really quickly, Dave, that the companies I studied, and I studied over 1,000 examples of the concept I wrote about, get it, or they didn't put their customer first. They actually put their employees first. And so it caused me to start to look at the employee experience and how specifically do you do things to reinforce your culture and to drive engagement. Because that's so key. You don't want employees that have a sense of indifference. You want them engaged. You want them bought in. From there, I'm not going to go into all of the topics, but I started to delve into how technology impacts the experience. So I have an entire book on how you leverage data and analytics, and I just updated it with AI. I mentioned presentation skills, so communication is super important. I also have some books on leadership. So, specifically, leading across the generations and also kind of managing yourself and leading effective teams. And so, I'm missing a couple of the topics in there, but it's a wide range. The overarching theme, though, is how do you stand out? How do you be different? And how do you create an environment for growth?
With personal branding, standing out is obviously up there in the top three of the most critical things, being that everyone's creating a personal brand now, and you and the next door neighbor are a coach or a consultant. What is your prediction in 2026 for one of the most important things we need to focus on in order to stand out?
Ooh, great question.
Bring the heat.
What do you need? Well, I think if you're gonna stand out, I've written an entire book on this, and I'll talk more in general terms. I First off, I think it is incredibly hard to stand out and be different. So the research says only about 3% of people have the ability to think and act differently. So where the 97% gets stuck is that they're confined to what I call the box of the norms of kind of society, the industry that they're in, and we tend to do what is normal or expected. So in the entire book, it's my favorite in the series. It's called The Pink Goldfish, which is all about embracing what makes you different. We found there's 8 different ways you can do it, but essentially 2 different types. There is doubling and tripling down on what makes you unique and different, right? So in your DNA, what makes you weird? In some cases, what makes you weak, right? And it's understanding those things and having the courage to double and triple down on them. And then, this is going to sound counterintuitive, another way you can stand out is the minimize kind of strategy. And if everyone else does A, B, C, and D, maybe the fact you only do A and B, and you do less of what everyone does as normal, makes you stand out. So I don't think that there's any one thing you can do. I think you need to spend the time to understand, A, what makes you unique, and what do you want to do less of to be able to stand out.
Yeah, I like the idea of doubling down on what makes you unique and what is kind of like your natural state. I think so much, especially my clients and just I think people who want to get into personal branding in general, they're like weary of growing a personal brand because they feel as though they need to become something else.
Right.
They have to like match the aesthetic and personality of the like Gary V's of the world to like grow a personal brand. But like I think what you're giving people permission here is like that's Gary V's natural state and that's his quirks, but
Right.
like that's why it works for him. But for you, it's something else. So
Right. So
find that thing.
I'll back up. I'm going to give you 4 animals.
Oh, we're doubling down on
We're
this.
doubling down on it. Lopsiding it is what we call it. So let me ask you, are cows unique?
Yes, in certain ways, yeah.
Yes, because their spots, Dave, are like our fingerprints. No 2 cows are alike. But I think a lot of people will answer that question and go, they're not unique. And it's because if you think of a cow, they're oblivious to what makes them unique. In fact, one cow, Dave, would walk, and what would all the rest of the cows do?
Follow?
Literally creating a cow path and never diverting. So you don't, spoiler alert, you don't want to be a cow. The opposite of that, let me ask you a question. Are peacocks unique?
Yes, in certain ways.
Because of their feathers. Their feathers are exactly like the spots. But what's the difference between the peacock and the cow?
They don't follow.
Well, the peacock is like they're not afraid to put that sense. They own that uniqueness and they put it out there in a big way for everyone to see. So spoiler alert, you want to be more, we call that the more philosophy, right? Doubling and tripling down. How about zebras? What do you
I'm going to say that's the
think?
same. I'm getting a pattern here. Is it? Is that? I'm going to go with yes.
They are unique,
Yeah.
and they're unique is because of their striping. So no two zebras are exactly alike. I always like to ask this: are they black with white stripes or white with black stripes? Dave, you're on the clock.
White with black stripes.
They are black
Ah,
with white stripes. And here's the thing.
we'll edit that out. No.
There you go. Here's the thing. I always challenge people. You know, like if you ever from another zebra,
I'm not sure. No.
it's almost impossible. Like literally, they stand amongst other zebras to camouflage themselves and not stand out because that's a prey defense for them. Dave, when a lion sees five zebras, do they see five zebras?
No.
They see one really big one and they won't attack it. So think about those stripes. You know, this is like the idea of like trying to fit the norm, right? I come from a marketing background, and we all do this, not just marketers. We benchmark what makes somebody a leader within our space or who we believe is the leader. And then once we've broken down the traits that we think make them the leader, what do we do next, Dave, whether we want to admit it or not?
We try to replicate them ourselves.
We start to emulate those same things. And is that a recipe for standing out and being different? It's a recipe for
No.
sameness.
Yeah.
So we have good intentions of it, but we end up looking like everyone else. Now, here's the fourth and last animal. You ready? The polar. Dave, what color are polar bears?
White.
No, you're really going to want to edit this. They're black.
Okay.
They're black. And the reason why we see them as white or an off-white is that their fur is hollow and translucent, meaning the light passes through the fur to their black skin, which keeps them warm. But what's interesting is as that light passes to all the colors in the spectrum some of the colors start to get removed, and what gets bounced back to our eye is the absence of color, which is why we see them as white. So that's the idea of taking things away. Now, polar bears are also really interesting animals. This is turning into like Animal Planet podcast.
I was going to say, yeah, Discovery Channel. 101.
Yeah. So they are not herd animals. They might live solitary lives. They're not afraid to go off on their own. They're all left-handed. That's really interesting. And they're the only animal on Earth that actively hunts human beings. So you see a polar bear, you go the other direction.
Yeah.
But that's the minimization thing. It's how do you take things away and do less of what everyone else does as normal. All right, I'm going to get off my animal stand here.
No, I think it was some great analogies or examples of differentiation. So that's I'm sure we can all at home take something away from that in terms of stop being a chameleon, maybe another
Yeah,
another animal.
I don't know if you want to be a chameleon. That's kind of like the zebra where you kind of fade into the background.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think you want to be like a peacock, or you want to be like a polar bear, or you want traits of both.
Love it. Now I want to get into a bit of a fun section here. This is where we're going to play a bit of a few games, if you will. Largely, this is so we can get a little bit more information about what's helped you grow your personal brand, but also we're here because we want to help experts grow their personal brand through social content. So all of these things we're about to go through are also going to be very clip-worthy moments to take out, post on social media. If you are listening, go check out Personal Brand Blueprint socials so you can see the result of this. So We are going to play a game called What's One? And basically, I'm going to ask you one resource that's helped you grow your personal brand. Um, and yeah, just kind of explain what it is and how it's helped you grow your personal
Sure.
brand. Know the rules? All right. What is one book every personal brand should read?
Ooh, I think there's a great book by Adam Grant called Give and Take. You familiar with that?
No.
So Adam Grant he's such a slacker. He's a Wharton professor. And he basically, I'll give you the thumbnail of the book. He said that there are three types of people in this world. There are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. So do we all know what a giver is? Like giver's gain type of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and takers are people that are, right, take. Matchers are they're the ones that are like keeping score. And Adam's thing is, and I think this relates to your personal brand, is the most successful people are actually givers, right? They give more than what's expected. They go above and beyond. That makes sense. They provide value. Um, Here's the trick question: who are the least successful out of those three?
So it's givers, takers, matchers.
Yeah,
I would assume takers.
no, believe it or not,
Mm,
givers are also the least successful.
mm.
So really what the book is about is kind of espousing how do you do giving? How do you become a giver, but in a way that you're not getting taken advantage of and that you can provide value, if that
Love
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Gary V jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah.
Give, and then eventually, ask for something. All right. What is one tool every personal brand needs to use?
You mentioned video before. I think video is super important. They say if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what do you think a minute of video is worth? Over a million. I think it's 60 frames or whatever, 48 frames a second. You probably know better than I do. So I do think video is important. I think consistency. I know you said one thing, but I'm doubling down.
Extra credit.
Consistency is super important as well.
Well, this is kind of already jumped ahead, but what is one type of content every personal brand needs to post?
I think I think you need to provide insight, but you also need to inspire action. And it's a mix of both inspiration and insight that is most important.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that are just posting fact bombs and not giving that personality stuff as well. All right, this one is called Rank It. It's
Rank it.
where on a scale of 1 to 10, how important are these to have these been to growing your personal brand personally,
Sure.
and why? So, at a scale of 1 to 10, how important was writing your books?
9.5.
Why?
Why? Because I think if you're going to stand out in the marketplace, everything being equal, the fact that you have done a book separates you from people that haven't. And it's proof, just like someone going through 4 years of college. Really, if we're being honest, are you really applying that in your job? No, you've shown somebody, you've shown up, you've done the work, and I think that's also what writing a book represents.
In-person networking events.
8.2. I think simply networking to network, uh, I think is a mistake.
Posting on social media.
Well, I think it depends on what you want to do. If you really want to build your personal brand and be seen as a thought leader or someone um, who is sought after in your space, then I think it is important to show up, but not show up and throw up.
I like that. And public speaking.
Socials maybe like a 8.75. Uh, Public speaking, I'm going to give it an 11 because Spinal Tap just came out, the Spinal Tap 2. I'm going to give it 11. I think you pull all of those things together. There is magic that happens when you're in the room and being able to share something. I saw that from my days when I led business development at an agency. See, look at you a lot differently if you had just one word on your badge. You know what that one word was, Dave?
Speaker.
Speaker. Speaker. And so I think, but here's the insight, and I teach this. Like no one is great. No one was born with the skill of doing it. In fact, Ralph Waldo Emerson has a great quote. He said, "All of the great speakers in this world have one thing in common: they're bad speakers at first." So I think you have to treat it like a skill, and you have to. I don't want to say muddle through, but you need to take opportunities. You need to get the throws and become better at it if you're going to be effective.
Get the reps in, yeah. All right, last one. This is going to be, it's a game called Finish the Hook. This is where I'm going to give you a social media hook to start your sentence off with. You repeat it and then finish the
Ride
thought.
my hook. Ooh, God, this is a good game.
Yeah, here we go. All right.
Now, are you saying
If I
hook
had
because
to-
my whole thing is goldfish and fish and hook? No.
I didn't plan it, but it works out well.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. Here's the hook. If I had to start from scratch, here's what I would prioritize first to grow my personal brand.
If I was starting out, I would prioritize where I started before, really understanding what makes me unique in the space and what do I want to go really deep on. Everything else after that is just tactical.
Love it. Stan, this was great. If people want to learn more about you and maybe book you for some speaking opportunities or read your books, where can they learn more about you?
Well, you can find me on Amazon. That's where my 19 books are. If you want to check out my site, it is stanphelps.com. And I will give you a little heads up. If you find on my homepage, there's a fleur de lis.
Awesome. Stan, thank you so much for being on today's episode.
Having me, Dave.